Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 35. Self-Publishing Films with Alex Fodor.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
In today's show, I talk to Alex, who is an experienced film director. He used to be a director on a long-running TV programme called The Bill in the UK, and now he produces his own feature films. He's recently started to move away from his usual distribution routes to start self-publishing his own films, and today I talked to him about that. And here's the interview. The funny thing is that usually, because it's self-publishing, I've got a fair idea, but with you it's like, well, I don't know that much about film self-publishing, but you do seem to be somebody who actually does it, which is a change rather than being a bit of a theorist.
Well, there are so many things actually like with it. It's actually very difficult to find anything about anything to do with self-publishing films on the net.
Yeah.
It tends to be like there's an awful lot of stuff that is written there, but you'll find that they are effectively they're just people selling their own wares.
Yeah.
So they sound like experts and everything like that, and then you find that they are steering you towards something which is going to cost you an awful lot of money. I've spent a lot of time.
It was quite interesting what you were just saying there about the fact that even more so than self-publishing of books, and there's a lot of charlatans in self-publishing the book place, seems like film self-publishing is even more of a Wild West, really.
Really like a difficult market. And fun enough, I've spent the last 6 or 7 months just working out, picking a side. I feel now, I feel actually very confident, with various things. I've got an overall strategy, and I'm going to be putting it into operation. And it's also to do with the funding side, because that's all part of it, really. Because if you want somebody to fund your film, in my opinion, if you've made films before, the first thing I would say if I was interested, I'd say, well, what happened to your last one? And if you say, well, I didn't actually sell any copies, there is too much of, it's a general thing within it, because I think people find it awkward and difficult. The people sort of imagine there's going to be a sort of a guardian angel who's going to come along and whisk you away, and it's all going to, suddenly pay for everything. It's really, I think that does happen, but it usually happens to somebody either who is related to somebody, one of the guardian angels, or is actually because you've had some sort of success or even moderate success in another way. It's exactly the same as things like rock bands and stuff like that with A&R. People always thought, I remember, I've played in bands, we always thought, oh, well, the A&R comes along, if they like the music, you get signed to a record label. In actual fact, that's absolute rubbish. All the A&R people I've ever met have got no real interest in music, virtually sort of tone deaf, really, or they could be. The only thing they're looking at when they turn up is how many people are there.
Yeah.
If it's packed out, they'll just go, great, we'll sign you. And that is exactly the same as it is nowadays, except now they just say, have you got 30,000 people following me on Facebook? Because they're going to have to put money in you.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. If there is interest, then they are interested.
Okay, so how feasible is it for someone to self-publish a film if they want to do it themselves and they've got some means of funding?
They could do it on virtually next to nothing. It is exactly feasible, or I certainly believe it's feasible. It's not just feasible, but I think it is actually probably the way to go. I think there should be more about it. There tends to be a lot of things, this sort of information that you tend to get is that you find out how somebody self-promoted or self-distributed their film or something, and if you actually read these things, what you tend to find is that the stuff is actually, it was done 20 years ago, so it's not relevant, or the point is they did it, so once they've done it, then there's no point in you trying to do it because it won't work. It's a classic example of that would be the much quoted Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Because that's been done, everybody's looking out for that. So you can't do exactly what they did with the Blair Witch Project. So you have to approach it in different ways.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of costs or skills required, how much does it actually cost in terms of time and money to actually produce a reasonable quality film?
Are you talking about to produce the film or to do the distribution of the film?
Well, both, actually.
I would say, well, it does. I mean, it does actually, like, it depends upon so much with a film is how long is a piece of string.
Yeah.
If you are just doing, and you can make a really good film, I can just immediately think of films off the top of my head which are just set in one room, and as a result, it's two people in one room. The budget can be really, really low. They tend to be, I would recommend to anybody who is actually looking to make a low budget film to actually look at and immerse themselves actually in theatre.
Yeah.
And have a look at some of the things, because things like Sleuth, there's one called The Hide, which is marvellous. Of course, things like 12 Angry Men are just people in a room effectively performing a play. More recently than that, there is Hateful Eight, which is the latest Tarantino. And apart from there was the bit outside at the front, but most of it is actually just in one room, and it's 8 people and tangling a mess around them. I believe that's been successful. I certainly liked it. And in fact, Reservoir Dogs was exactly the same principle. It was just set in a warehouse, and it's just a group of people arguing. You did have certain bits flashing, little scenes outside, flashbacks outside, but, they were quite optional extras. So I would say that is the way. And once you've actually got that, and you're actually just doing it, you can make a very good film for, say, even just, $20,000,
yeah.
$20,000. You really can, and you can really set the world alight if you market it properly. I would advise anybody to do that. What always tends to happen is people tend to write things which are too elaborate. But if you immerse yourself in particular things like fringe theatre, just watch these plays with the thing, you'll get a feel for it, that you can produce something just in one room. And if I would say to anybody, I would say produce something like that, get that, and then I would say whack it out, self-distribution. In fact, you could do it on less than that. It's all a matter of time, because one of the great drawbacks, you might say, oh, well, I'll do it, and I'll do this, and I'll do the editing and everything. But of course, you've got to live, unless you are privately funded, live while it's doing. So then it takes a long time to actually get the final product out. But you can do it, and when you actually think about it, then if you've got some sort of actors that you respect and stuff like that, and you set it in such and such, the actual outlay is actually really, really low. It's ridiculously low now. You can buy a very good camera for, second hand for just sort of something like £1,500, so a couple of $1,000. I'll try and speak in dollars more. But a couple of $1,000 for the camera. Actors, even if your locations, if you think about it, if you can get a group of people together, like with it, even then paying some expenses, it's entirely feasible to produce something, providing, but the only trouble is that you've got to have, the actors have to be, pretty good.
Yeah.
You can't just be total crap. But if you keep it simple, then that's really the way to go. But as I say, like for 20,000, you're cooking. You've got to accept, really, if it's your first movie, you are going to have to come up with the readies for it.
Yeah.
You can hunt around and everything, but nobody, and a short film is an entirely different animal to there's no point in making a short film and then expecting people then to fund you for features. You may be great for short films, but features are an entirely different thing. There's just so much more, even with a very simple one, to just take on board, like with the overall thing. So just because somebody made a short film, I wouldn't myself say that I would just directly give them money for funding for a feature.
Oh, okay. That's surprising, because a lot of the advice you see is people say, I'll make short films. But I suppose that only helps in terms of learning filmmaking rather than actually getting any funding, by the sounds of things.
Oh, it's a bit like, let's say if you were somebody who was into funding, say, restaurants or something, and somebody who come to you who's sort of had a pie and mash stall, and they'd say, I want to open up a big expensive restaurant in the West End, you'd go, I don't know, you don't really know anything about things like, anything about owning a property, really. And you say, oh, no, but the pie and mash stall, that was a property. You say, well, it was on wheels, you towed it around behind your bicycle. It's not quite the same. So it takes a much larger leap of faith. And, myself, I just go like, no, it's not the way. But as I said, you can make something. And let's face it, if we're talking about £20,000 or so, first of all, a lot of people can can afford that anyway. And quite frankly, actually, on that sort of budget, that means that in the post-production, then you've got sufficient funds to support yourself while you're doing the edit. I mean, with Dead and Wake, I had problems with that. That would have been, well, first of all, I've been mucked around by the producers for the last year, saying they're going to do it, the more traditional way, and we're going to get a distributor on and all of this sort of stuff. So that's been put back for a whole year, and I've decided to just dump them and just go on with it. But in the actual shooting and the editing of that, we had the funding for the editing. Unfortunately, the banks decided to remove the overdraft on the studio, which meant that I had to shut down the studio and pay back the various bits and pieces and all the various things, and just. That meant that, in fact, I had to, because I used the money from the Dead and the Wake, the post-production, which would have kept me just alive for a few months while I was doing the editing, it meant that I had to then start working while I was actually doing it, and that delayed that, so that instead of it being edited in 6 months, it took about a year and a half.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, it's quite a difference,
Yeah, because it suddenly becomes something you're doing part-time, weekends, you get distracted, stuff like that. You're dealing with other clients who are doing, editing and stuff like that. But anyway, so that's what I would say. And then with the feature, there's a big difference. No matter what, I've won a few awards and stuff like that. It helps, but it's not. It's nice to say award winning, but it's not really bee's knees. And just entering in festivals all over the place. Yeah, do it, but it's not really. Just because you won a short film award in the Wycoming Film Festival, in my experience, does not necessarily mean that you're going to really cut much ice, like with the overall thing. And I think you're dealing, the other big difference between a feature and a short is you can't really make money out of shorts.
Yeah.
That is, I think there should be potential, and I'm actually going to try, with the latest short I'm producing. I'm going to actually put it out online and just see whether I can get people to fork out on the Amazon Prime. And see, that is just one of the things. You say, I want it listed on Amazon Prime. How do I get it on Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a way that, you can't find from Amazon themselves, that you can't, you've even contacted them, you can't find. How do I get it on Amazon Prime? I want it on Amazon Prime.
Well, I know the reason that I started sort of looking for somebody like you who self-publish films is that I actually saw there's CreateSpace, which the service, they also generate paperback books that you can self-publish on Amazon. I actually noticed they've added an option. I don't know when they added it. It's probably about a year ago, to actually have it on Amazon Instant Video, which is their Prime thing. But you can't make it free on Prime, which is a bit annoying. The only doing a web search.
No, to me, that's fine. I mean, I think with the books, it's supposed to be 99p, but you can get around it some clever way, can't you?
Well, I mean, CreateSpace is free in effect. I mean, they take their cut of the royalties and the actual cost, so it's not too bad. What I understand, I think I remember talking to somebody and they were saying that the other problem is that you can't determine the price. Or there's some. They discount it a lot on the Amazon Prime, and I couldn't find. There were quite a few people who claimed to be able to distribute it onto Amazon Prime, but again, with the internet, you're never quite sure whether this is actually right or not.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the other thing actually about people go like, "Oh, great, I've got a distributor, but are they any good?"
Yeah,
they're going to have to put stuff in, and certainly I've got a couple of features, and they had distributors, and they're absolute, quite frankly. Actually, like one of them, I mean, I noticed the other day, and this is why I'm trying to contact Amazon, but like one of my films is out there. I can see it's the American distributors of the film, and it's on there for sale for £3.50, and I can't find anybody to deal with Amazon Prime. I've contacted them a couple of times saying, look, where is this money go? Because their contracts ran out a long time ago, but they were the same company that just gave it to another company, just presumably to, stimulate the market or whatever, and they put it onto YouTube, so they had a contract, and it was watched 150,000 times, and I never got a penny. And you just go, so this is the other trouble with distributors. Most of them don't really do their stuff, and from what you've described, those ones, I mean, like, there are certain companies, and as I say, there's this guy called Jason Brubaker. If you just do how to self-distribute, you'll find this Jason Brubaker thing. And he basically points it, says you can't do it by yourself. It has to go through an aggregate. And then there's these aggregates, and he does say, like, I am creative director of one of these things. I go, all right. And then they want $1,200 to put it onto Amazon.
Yeah.
And going, is that really, does Amazon really made it that difficult? As I said, like, picking it apart, I sort of go like, well, all I think they're going to do is put it onto Create. He sounds very genuine. I go like, well, all you've got to do is, as far as I can see, is put it onto Create, the CreateSpace, and it will jiggle its way through. And that means that, to me, if I am, let's say, for example, I mean, the next stage would, first of all, this is what I recommend. This is what my end conclusions after many years, and also bearing in mind the current way things are. Slap it onto Amazon Prime. You can do, if you want to do a DVD release, that's relatively cost effective and stuff like that. But it's, the digital means, I like digital copies myself. But I find that so few people do. It's actually quite a niche market to actually have people who keep all their DVDs. My wife, she has in the past just tried to throw out my DVDs and things like that. And you just go, I'm just tidying up. And like, just threw them out. I didn't throw them all out. There's, some of them went down the charity shop. What? So in fact, people don't, and they are looking more towards things like the Netflix, much more than they were. It's been that really, the online thing has been around for sort of 20 years, but it hasn't really sort of caught on. But I think now it has. So the way I see it is to get it onto, well, principally Amazon Prime, I would say, rather than Netflix, because the Netflix, basically it's a one-off price, and I looked into it, but I should imagine it's pretty low.
Yeah. And
then so that to me is a dump thing. So first of all, you should get it onto Amazon Prime, and then you publicize like crazy. And I want to speak a bit about the publicity side of things, to actually like generating the overall thing. And then once after, let's say after 6 months, then maybe sort of, stick it onto the Netflix. My overall feeling, like with that, is that it might not generate all of its income. Another trouble with I'm talking principally here about Dead and Awake.
Yeah.
The Dead and Awake did have a distribution thing, but I think I mentioned to you about there was problems with the actor involved.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, you didn't.
No, the reason why I did Dead and Awake was because the money actually came from something called Market America.
Yeah.
And with the thing, and they said like, is there by any chance, because that's a sort of a massive sales thing in America, they said, any chance that there's a part for this guy who's one of our salesy type things. They have these massive sort of gigantic sort of evangelistical sort of things selling vitamins and things like that. And I said, well, yeah, great. So basically slotted him in there and everything like that. And they said, great. Because I just sort of said, well, look, all we've got to do is sell a couple of thousand copies, made the money back, anything over that. And I'm going, wow, I'm sold that. That's all good. And they've got their guy in it. Unfortunately, though, a couple of months after the thing, he tried to do a thing where he was selling virtually the same products with his own brand name on. And they're still suing him. But it meant that they were not interested in publicising, obviously, a movie with him on it. So they lost the distribution, like with the thing. So there's been one or two things going wrong. But so the way I see it, the entire budget of that film was only £20,000.
Yeah.
It was something like $30,000, something like that. So the way I see it is that, right, get it onto Amazon Prime, sell whatever you can, even if you've only got, 8,000 or something, at least you can actually say to anybody, look, well, we managed to do that and we didn't have anything for the marketing, that way, that makes sense. And the other thing is, of course, you know about things like the EIS and stuff like that?
That's the tax.
Yep. Basically means, if you just say about a year ago, if you were doing an SEIS thing, there was no way, if you put money actually into any project, really, you'd actually lose your money.
Yeah.
Even now, when it's actually put in, this is with the Seed Enterprise Initiative scheme. Even now, with the thing, if somebody put in, say, £10,000 into the thing, the most that they would lose is £1,500.
Yeah, I mean that's a UK small investment. Yeah,
absolutely. But it doesn't have to be 10,000. It goes
Yeah.
up. It goes up to a few million, so more than enough for the thing. So that's a very powerful thing to be waving at somebody. And if you can as well sort of say, well, also, you know, we're going to make more money than the last one because the last one XYZ. But if you've got, to me, the most important thing is to not be saying like, well, we didn't effectively, you didn't finish the film. If you didn't sell copies at the end, you didn't finish it. And it seems, I think there's a lack of things whereby, and certainly this is what, you know, I've spent 7 months just like looking into. There is a lack of fresh ideas and also people that are at all in any way interested in actually like marketing the things. And a lot of it you can do, but it is a bit time consuming. I would say really to actually do first of all, you've got my research is, as I said, like Amazon Prime, get it out there, then say 6 months, go for it. And then the next thing is how to drive people towards your site. So that then comes into a sort of a marketing principle. It is important you do need strong Facebook and Twitter followings. I think the classic marketing mistake that people make is that they go like, right, well now I want to sell, right?
Yeah.
I've just produced my and everything. Now I'm going to go out but sorry,
it's too late.
Got to spend a few months really putting together the things. That's why I'm making this short film is actually to publicise Dead and Awake, because that way, actor from Dead and Awake is in this short film. There are a number of other connections. It's another sort of thrillery, sort of horror-y type thing, sort of psycho thriller. So there are certain connections. It's the same sort of market that would appeal to both of them, and it generates an interest. You can do things like crowdfunding campaigns. Even though not raise masses of money, you've got publicity for the crowdfunding campaigns. And I think probably the only trouble is you've got such a weeny percentage of people that actually do take note because of the, you know, I call it the schoolyard.
Yeah.
You've probably got another for it. It's the algorithms of these search engines. You think that's just because you've got, well, let's say you've got 100 followers, that if you put out a message, those 100, it's put up on a notice board and they all see it, but they won't.
I remember looking on my Twitter when I had about 1,000 followers on it, and actually, I think it was about 30 people saw every tweet I put out.
That's it, yeah. And that's the physical thing, because people say, oh, yes, because there's so many go out. So no, it physically doesn't get onto it. And like, so you need to be, so the more, because my stuff is all like connected, that's increased. So even if I did just have 1,000, there would be more than 30 now, and it will get stronger the more, you know, you've got to build it up, like from a number of different avenues and stuff like that to actually get, but you've got to do it like now. And I think emails are probably, you know, you do know that emails will actually get through.
Yeah. If somebody is like, they've made this $20,000 film on their own and they've managed to get onto Amazon Prime and they're getting some money coming in, is there any possibility that they could then get that into cinemas, or are cinemas kind of out of reach for self-published filmmakers?
The market has changed actually with the screens. In particular, I think it's the Empire Cinema chain and also Cineworld. You can approach them. They will put in small independent films like in there. Just talk to them.
Yeah.
I have seen a number of those, and it's not just. It used to be sometimes time when it would only be, say, around here, sort of Turkish film, Indian films. But I've seen a number of small ones. The one down in Walthamstow, I think it's an Empire, and I've seen a couple of independent things there, and they did all right at Walthamstow, and as a result, they then stuck them national.
Yeah.
So it is entirely feasible. The other thing that you'll see, and this is the old way, is to effectively pay for, and this is what you get more in the States. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's, if you buy one of those things like, this is how to self-distribute, and it will say like, what you do is you hire a cinema, because you can hire a cinema, publicize the event, and people come along, pay tickets, and then you make money.
So in effect, you're running the whole event yourself, really, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that sounds just far too much hard work, and I think maybe it works in the American Midwest or something. But I don't think. I think that would take a lot of money to actually do. And it would also take a lot of hard work to actually get local audiences. So yeah, but you can approach, and they are more they're more open to indie films. Like now, you see them. You're not seeing massive, but we're talking about being able to actually have your screen in a cinema, big cinema. Let's say, it might be say Thursday night in the smallest screen or something like that, but if then you do actually push the thing, then there are people coming in, then they will sort of say, oh, well, we're putting another cinema, another one. And so again, it comes down to how much but you've got to, publicize it.
Yeah.
And it's not really, the ones I'm thinking of, I knew the people, they actually just approached, as I said, I think it was Empire. But I would say that these ones, putting it into the cinema is also, it's just like part of the overall. It looks better, in the Twitter and Facebook messages that yes, it's going to be in this cinema, and this and that and all the other, and it looks better, so that people then, I would say, are more likely to then just buy it because they don't want to go to the cinema. They will, that increases your kudos and your clout. Winning some awards does as well, but in my experience, it's nice to have, but usually I find the ones that got awards, there's just sort of haven't won an award, and next 6 months or so I've entered it into another festival. It's a fair bit of work, and it does cost. They usually want something, like 50 quid just to look at it. That doesn't mean it's going to get into the festival. Certainly things like Sundance and things like that. That's, people say it's now just a big scam, because you won't actually be able to actually get it, or very few actually get into the festival, let alone win awards. And, it costs you $100 just to submit someone.
Yeah.
And only a tiny percentage actually do get through.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of your film Dead and Awake, where can people find out about that? Or where is it available, online or Amazon Prime? Or
it's just going to get it onto Amazon Prime. I expect it to take about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
To get it on there. And there is the website deadandawakemovie.co.uk. There's Facebook, Dead and Awake Movie, Twitter Dead in Awake Movie. So those are where we've got the information where it's actually out. It's got its trailer, it's got its artwork, and it will shortly. I'm sure I'm going to be having a sort of a screening premiere type thing down, because I think that's just nice anyway. Down near Shoreditch, just a small place, just sort of a 100-seater or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be more about it. It's a psycho-goth thriller, which means that basically it's a bit, people think of these things as sort of horror, but the horror is a bit like the difference between horror and supernatural. Most of it is implied, as opposed to actually seeing limbs being hacked off or anything like that. So it's more about the sort of the tension. It's concerned. It's about a group of kidnappers who have kidnapped a girl with psychic powers, and so they don't really know what's going on, but they're killing each other. That's really what's happening.
Okay. And have you got anything lined up after this in terms of? Well, you got the short film, haven't you?
Well, we've got the short film, Gorka.
Yeah.
We're also going to be doing the 48-hour sci-fi film challenge, which should be fun. I'm intending to do a number of shorts throughout the year, and I'm intending that in August, my target is basically in August got a location in Gran Canaria to shoot a horror flick called The Sixth Monkey. So sixthmonkeymovie.com, I believe. And that is basically my target right with it. I don't know how ultimately feasible that is, but as I said, I have the battle plan is to raise get money on Dead and Awake, and therefore attract funding for that to happen. The sort of budget we're talking about with that, I don't want to do another one just at such a low budget. I'm just looking at it, but it is one of these things which is really is a sort of quite a two-hander really. The sort of budget we're looking at is about 50,000, something like that. And that should give us more than enough elbow space to make the film, everybody gets paid, and also distribute it.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Anyway, it was nice talking to you today, Alex.
Well, it's been nice talking to you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.